Okay, this is your review for the test tomorrow. It is open notes. On the test, there's 5 equations you have to solve, and the first thing you need to know is how many answers that an equation has. So if we see that second power, that means there's 2, and we have to find the 0 and write set. So the 0 is here, so we write set. Remember, if it's not set, then you switch everything to this side opposite and go blank x squared blank x blank and add what you can. But I think most of these are already set, at least the ones with 2 answers. So now I need to look here and know how many terms I need to factor. Okay, so there's 1 and 2 and 3 on this one. So 3 terms will be the GCF followed by the T. So GCF and T. Okay, so my GCF, first question, do we have a negative in the front? It's not there. Check if everything has x. X second, x first, but not an x, so I can't put x. And then I GCF calculate just the numbers, 1, 3, and 40. And that's 1. Okay, so if the GCF's 1, that means we don't need to do that. All right, now go to your table. Again, that's A, B, and C. So I connect the A to the C and just multiply the 2 big numbers, positive 1 times negative 40. That gives me negative 40. So 40, I got a negative product, so it's a negative, so we would want a minus to try to get 3. And remember, 3 is negative. So 1 and 40, but 40 minus 1 is not 3. Okay, so 40 divided by 2 is 20. But 20 minus 2 is not 3, that's 18. Okay, 40 divided by 3, I got a decimal, so I skip 3. And then 40 divided by 4 is 10. So I go 4 and 10. But 10 minus 4 is not 3. Okay, now divide 40 by 5. Okay, I get 8, so I write 5 down and put 8. And 8 minus 5 is 3, so it's got to be these 2 factors. Now I got to sign them correctly. Now 3 is negative, so that means 8's negative. And then we have a negative product, so the signs have to be the opposite. So a negative 8 would be with a positive 5 then. Okay, A is 1x to the second. Okay, so since it's 1, we open up each parentheses with 1x. You don't want to keep your x to the second when you make the parentheses out because you're breaking this up into x times x. Then plus 5 minus 8. Okay, so 1 and 5, the GCF is going to be 1. Anytime 1 is one of the numbers that I punch in, it's going to be 1, which really just keeps it the same. So 1x plus 5. Then 1 and 8, again, I'm guessing you're going to get 1 because we're about to punch 1 in as one of the numbers, and that's 1. Okay, so that's 1x minus 8. Now up there was no GCF, so I don't have to put anything down here. So I have my 2 factors. Now on the last test, this is where you stop, but not here. You got to label your F1, F2, and go find your 2 answers. So they're equal to 0, so 1x plus 5 could equal 0, or F2, 1x minus 8 could equal 0. So you dot your x, circle it, and then you're going to minus your 5. Now 0 minus 5 is going to be negative 5. So we got 1 times x equals negative 5, and then we divide by 1, which keeps us just at negative 5. Then we plus 8, so 1 times x equals 8, and then we divide 8 by 1, but that just keeps you at 8, so those are the 2 solutions, negative 5, positive 8. Okay, my next problem, 2x to the second power minus 14x equals 0. So that would be 2 answers because of the second power there. So anytime there's 2 answers, we look for our 0. It's there, so it's set. Okay. So now how many terms do we have on this one? Looks like you only got 2, so it would be the GCF and the DOPS. Okay, so GCF, and then the difference of perfect squares. Remember, plus minus. Now, you can't be afraid to cross out a box if it doesn't work. But this is the setup. So the GCF, check for the negative in the front. It's not there. Does everything have x? Yeah, you got x to the power of 2 and x to the power of 1. So we want the smaller x to the power of 1. Okay? Now 2 and 14, those are the two terms. And I got 2 for my GCF. So 2x to the first. Remember, you got to put the x to the first with your 2 so you can simplify inside the parentheses. So again, you need to include the x to the first down there on the bottom. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and then on the x we take 2 minus 1, which is 1. And then I take negative 14. Remember, if it's a minus, we enter it as a negative divided by 2. And if I get a negative, I write it as a minus 7 in the parentheses. And since these x's have the same identical power, we eliminate those. Okay. Now, dots, remember the things you check for. Check for and cross this out. You're looking at these two. So see if you have x to the second. Okay, I don't have it. It's to the first. So right away, that makes this not possible. Okay, so my F1 and F2 to get these two answers take place in the GCF box since I can't go any further. So this is your first factor, F1, and that's your second. You're going to set them each equal to 0. Take the first powers off. You don't want to see those. So 2x could equal 0, or 1x minus 7 could equal 0. So we dot our multiplication part. We don't have to add or subtract here. We go straight to division. And 0 divided by 2 is 0. Now here we do have to add our 7 first. Now if I have 0 and add 7, that takes that side to 7 divided by 1. 7 divided by 1 is 7. So those are the two answers. Okay, now my next problem. 5x plus 3 equals 10x plus 33. Now I don't see the second power, so that means there's just one answer. And that makes this an NFP problem. So on NFP problems, first we want to get the equation so that the x appears only once. So let's take the x over here. It's like it's a positive. It's like a plus 10. So to undo a plus 10, you'd minus 10x. And then we take that away from our 5x. So 5 minus 10, that would be negative 5x plus our 3 equals 33. And now I dot and circle and just go from there. So we undo the plus 3 by minusing 3. So 33 minus 3 is 30. So negative 5 times x equals 30. And then I go ahead and divide both sides by the negative 5. Okay, so 30 divided by negative 5 is negative 6. So again, if you don't have a second power, there's one answer, and it's an NFP problem. You need to simplify the equation so the x appears only once by adding or subtracting, okay? And then dot, circle, and then undo your operations. Okay, my next one. Now we have the second power back in the house. So there's two answers. So I need to find my 0 and write set, okay? So you're set to go. So how many terms are we factoring? There'd be 3, so GCF T. Okay, so GCF, check for the negative in the front. It's not there. Check if everything has x. Well, we got x second, x first, and that doesn't have x, so don't put x there. Now we GCF calculator the 6, 13, and 5. See what we can maybe divide those by. And I just got a 1, so if 1's a GCF, that is not worth doing. Okay, so when I do my ABC, it comes from up here. So I take positive 6 times negative 5. Remember that 5's negative. Okay, so that gives me a negative 30. So it's a negative, so we're going to do the minus, and we got to minus this to get to 13. Now 13 is also negative, don't forget that. So 1 and 30. 30 minus 1 is not 13, though. 30 divided by 2 is 15. I don't believe 15 minus, oh, that is it, okay? So 2 and 15. So because 13 is negative, we need the higher number to be negative. We need a negative product, so we know that the signs are opposite. So negative 15 plus 2. Okay, now what's my a up there? A coefficient is 6x to the second. Okay, so I go 6x and 6x. Then plus 2 and minus 15. Okay, now divide these down by their GCF 2 at a time, though. You don't do all of them at a time. 6 and 2. I got 2, so I'm going to divide these by 2. They don't stay the same, okay? So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. When you divide a number by 2, you're just cutting it in half. Okay, 6 and 15. Now I got 3. Okay, so we divide by 3. So 6 divided by 3 is 2, so 2x. And negative 15 divided by 3, sorry, is negative 5. So I put minus 5. Okay, so this is my first factor. This is my second. There's no GCF to bring down, so I set those equal to 0. So either 3 times x plus 1 could equal 0, or 2 times x minus 5 could equal 0. So I dot and circle, and I undo the plus 1 by minusing 1. When you add or subtract a 0, it doesn't stay at 0. Okay, that's a division thing. So 0 minus 1 is negative 1. And then divide by 3. Remember, show your work. You're dividing by the number that's multiplied by the x. So negative 1 divided by 3, that'd be negative 0.3 repeating. I'm fine with decimals and the final answer, but they shouldn't be anywhere but here. Okay. Then we plus 5. If I add 5 to 0, that's 5. So 2 times x equals 5. And then I divide by 2. And 5 divided by 2 is going to give me 2.5. Again, decimals are okay in the end for your final answers, but they shouldn't appear anywhere till this end step. Okay, my next problem, 9x to the second power minus 16 equals 0. So I see my x to the second is there, so there's 2 answers. So find your 0, okay? So set. And how many terms do we have? We have 2. Okay, remember, never underline the 0. Okay, so there's 2 terms. So it's the greatest common factor, and then seeing if you have the difference of 2 perfect squares. Okay, so the GCF, remember the rules, same rules. Check for the negative in the front, it's not there. Check for x on everything. Well, we got x second, but not on 16, so we can't put x. Now GCF calculate your 9 and 16. Okay, I just got a 1 as my GCF, so if it's 1, we just don't bother with that. Okay, now DOPS, check for your x to the second. Well, I don't have anything here, so the x to the second's still there. So I do have x to the second. Break that up into x times x. Is our second number negative? Well, here's the second number, and it's negative. Now turn this paper over and see if the numbers are perfect. By perfect means that there's a number times itself that equals this and this. So 9, 9's a perfect number, 3, 3. 16. 16 is a perfect number, 4, 4. Okay, and there's no GCF to worry about, so I have my factors to solve the equation. Okay, again, these both equal 0. So 3 times x plus 4 could equal 0, or 3 times x minus 4 could equal 0. So I dot my x, both of them, and then we minus 4. 0 minus 4 takes that side of the equation to negative 4. And then I divide negative 4 by positive 3. Okay, that's going to be a decimal, and that's okay in the end. Okay, so negative 1.3 repeating. There's your first answer. And then you add 4. 0 plus 4 is 4, so 3 times x equals 4. Divide by 3. And now it's going to be kind of the same as the first one, but this time there's no negative, so it's going to be positive 1.3 repeating. Okay, and those are your two answers. Okay, the next problem, 2x to the second power minus 10x equals 0. So again, there's that second power, so we know we got anytime there's two answers, we got to find our set place. Now we have two terms, okay? So this time there are 2 again. So it's the same 2 boxes. This problem is going to work out a little bit differently. It won't be just the same. So GCF and DOPS. So in the GCF, we do not have the negative in front. Remember, check for the negative in the front. It's not there. Check if everything has x. Well, it can be any power as long as it's an x. So to the second, to the first, and that's the only 2. So yeah, x needs to come here, x to the first. Okay, and then 2 and 10, we got to find the greatest common factor for that. So 2 and 10 gives me a 2 GCF. So 2x to the first. Remember, you got to put the x there. And then 2x to the first, 2x to the first. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and on x, 2 minus 1 is 1. And then I take my negative 10 divided by 2. That's negative 5, so I put minus 5. Then since these have the same power, they cancel, and that 5 will not have x. Okay, now cross this off. Now you look at these two for your DOPS. So again, check for your x to the second power. Well, it's not to the second, it's just to the first, so that makes this not possible. Okay, so your F1, F2 come from up here. This is factor 1, this is factor 2. Take those first powers away. All they do now is just confuse you when you're setting them equal to 0. So 2 times x could equal 0, or 1 times x minus 5 could equal 0. So dot your x, circle, dot your x, circle. Here we go straight into the division. There's no need to add or subtract, so we divide by 2. And when I divide 0 by a number, that keeps it at 0. Okay, but when I add or subtract, it doesn't stay at 0. Here I'm adding. It's like if you have $0 and you divide it, everybody gets $0 because there's no money. But if you have $0 and you add $5, that's $5. So 1 times x equals 5. And divide by 1, and 5 divided by 1 keeps us at 5. Okay, there's 2 answers. Just like I said there was going to be. You find them using your factoring of F1, F2. Okay, my next one, 14x to the second power minus 20x plus 6 equals 0. So this x is to the second power. We know there's 2 answers, so we have to find the 0 and make sure we're set, which we are. So how many terms are on the other side? 1, 2, 3. So that's 3. So GCF and then T. Okay, so the GCF, 3 terms, same as 2. Check for the negative in front. Oh, no, it's not there. Check if everything has x. We have x second, x first, and 6 doesn't have x, so do not put an x here or here. Okay, now GCF calculator, 14, 20, and 6. This one's not just 1. 14, 20, and 6. And I come up with 2 as my GCF. But just 2, not 2x. You can't take an x to the first with it because this 6 doesn't have an x. So it's just a 2. So I go up here and divide just by 2. So since I'm not putting an x down there, that's going to stay to the second, and that stays to the first. I don't cross out any x's. So 14 divided by 2 is 7, and then that x stays to the second. Then negative 20 divided by 2. Remember, if it's a minus, think negative, is negative 10, so minus 10, x to the first. And then positive 6 divided by positive 2 is positive 3. Okay. Now we cross this out because the ABC comes from here. Okay. I shouldn't even look there. After the GCF's done, I forget the original. So I connect positive 7 to positive 3. They're both positives. So it only makes sense I get a positive then on top. So 21 positive. So I'm adding now. And I'm not trying to get to 20. I'm trying to get to 10. Okay. 10, which is negative. I had a lot of people on the last test, and I understand why. Put that they were adding there. Nope, we need to forget about that and go with these. Okay, so 1 and 21, I don't think that adds to 10, so we can't use that. 21 divided by 2 is a decimal. So skip that. 3 and 7. Okay, 7 plus 3 is 10, so we want those two. Now my 10's negative. What's that mean? That means the 7 for sure is negative. Now I have a positive up there, so the signs have to be the same, okay, to multiply to a positive. Okay, so minus. Now again, A is not 14. A is now 7, okay. So I want to lead off with 7x and 7x, okay, and then minus 3, minus 7, and then another set. Okay, so 7 and 3, the GCF's 1. So again, if your GCF's 1, that's just going to keep us at 7x minus 3. Now, 7 and 7, now these are identical factors, so it makes sense that the GCF's 7. And that becomes 1x minus 1. Okay. Now, you did have a GCF up there with the 2, so I'm going to put it down here, but I am not going to put an F label on it because it doesn't have an X. It's just the number 2. So this is your F1. This is your F2. Okay, so 7x minus 3 could equal 0. And this is why you set it at 0, so then when you factor, you can set your equation equal to 0. 1x minus 1 equals 0. So I dot my x's, both of them. Then I plus 3. 0 plus 3 is 3. Now you divide, but it's 3 divided by 7, not 7 divided by 3. It's not always the bigger divided by the smaller. It's the number that's by itself divided by the number that's multiplied by x. So 3 divided by 7, I get this decimal, and you can put 0.42 or 0.43. Just go 2 digits after the decimal. And over here we plus 1. So 1 times x equals 1 divided by 1. 1 divided by 1 keeps us at 1. Okay, those two answers. Okay, now this one, I do not really see a second power, so there's only one answer, which means NFP. It's a non-factoring problem, so I don't need to use this crap, the boxes. Okay, make sure the x only appears once in the equation, which on this one it does, so I dot it and circle it right away. I just need to add 6. 16 plus 6 is 22. And then divide by my 2. And 22 divided by 2 gives me my answer I'm looking for. That's 11. Okay, and you'll have 5 like that on the test tomorrow. Okay, I'm not going to put 16. That's a little overboard, but Oh no, we only did 8 just now. Okay. So we're good.